Hello and welcome to Talk Truth. My name is Corey Huntsberger. I've got my father, Alan Huntsberger, in the studio. We're going to start off with our foundational verse. The earth and everything in it, the world and its inhabitants belong to the Lord. For he laid its foundation on the seas and established it on the rivers. Psalm 24, 1 and 2. Important verse, especially for today's program, that we point to that the Lord created everything. He created the world and all its inhabitants, everything in it. It belongs to him because he's the creator. Inside of that, he created universal laws of nature when he did it all. And that is key and important piece of the puzzle of the conversation we're having today. Right, Dad?
Yeah, we're talking about gravity, for example. there's a law.
It doesn't
matter what you believe, what goes up must come down. I love Psalms 90, verse 2. It says, before the mountains were born, before you gave birth to the earth and the world, from eternity to eternity, you are God. And then in Psalm 102, it says, but you, Lord, are enthroned forever. Your fame endures to all generations. And then the Isaiah 40, I don't know if you've read it lately. Do you not know? Have you not heard? Has it not been declared to you from the beginning? Have you not considered the foundations of the earth? God is enthroned above the circle of the earth. Its inhabitants are like grasshoppers. He stretches out the heavens like thin cloth. He spreads them like a tent to live in. He reduces princes to nothing and makes judges of the earth irrational. They are barley. They are barely planted, barely sown. Their stem hardly took root in the ground. When he blows on them, and they wither, and the whirlwind carries them away like stubble. Who will you compare me to? And who is my equal? Says the Holy One.
Wow. That's pretty
like
powerful.
that, eh?
Well, I'm excited about our guest. His name is Donald Wilkie. He's the author of Freedom Revealed, A Simple, Elegant System. And we're going to bring him on. Donald, thank you so much for being on the show.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Donald, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and about this book a little bit.
Born and raised in Michigan, grew up in Detroit, was a business owner in Detroit. Went to University of Michigan when it was a pretty decent school at that time. I wouldn't say so much anymore. And I've always had urge to understand freedom. And the book is a 20-year culmination of my study of freedom. Benjamin Franklin was my guru, so there's a lot of mention of Benjamin Franklin throughout the book. But basically, I understand freedom as a mechanical system and not a philosophical system. And that's the entire difference of the book. No one, to my knowledge, has ever looked at freedom as a mechanical system.
Yeah.
What's the one thing that stood out to you about Benjamin Franklin? The one thing that hits you the most all the time?
Just how he wanted to know everything, and he got awful close to doing it for his day and age. A tremendously intelligent human. I'm convinced perhaps the smartest man that ever lived, certainly within the top 5.
And he didn't have Chat GPT.
No, he was his own Chat GPT. Just a little thing on Franklin. We all know Franklin with electricity and all that, but he would imagine how electricity has to be made, how lightning has to be created. And his description of how lightning is created is as good as anything we have today. And that's just from sitting in his chair at his desk and imagining how the particles have to interact and how it has to be created. Quite an amazing man.
Mm. Let's get into your book. I think you've cracked the code. You have, which is something so simple, and I'm surprised no one else has really kind of brought it up. But can you go into a little bit about what you discovered with the competition, the waste, and the ease?
Yeah, sure. The start of the book, I said, where did we all come from? How does it all start? I mean, I always wanted to get to the beginning of things, to the root cause, if you will. And I remember a statement of the environmental movement, there is no waste in nature. Well, the obvious question that happens when you have no waste in nature is what is the mechanism that drives it out? And what I discovered is that competition is the mechanism that drives waste out of nature. Nature's a very competitive system. The thing that I then did was realize that competition and waste were connected, like opposite ends of a seesaw. So if you can picture this in your mind, competition on one side, waste on the other, competition goes up, waste goes down, and vice versa. And that explains the operation of nature, except for the third foundation, which is ease. Everything moves to ease. We always take, it doesn't mean nature is easy. It means we take the easier path. So the idea I had in my mind was you go to the national park, you always see the sign that says, do not feed the animals. Why do not feed the animals? Because if you start feeding the animals, they'll stop feeding themselves. So those three concepts, competition, waste, and ease, are the foundations of nature. You can apply them to the human existence, the marketplace and government, and then you open up a whole new field of understanding of why things happen. And mechanical systems are always trying to answer the why things happen question.
Well, can you go ahead and explain that to us? How does that, the laws of nature of what you were saying, you know, with the competition and the waste and the ease, how does that apply to the governmental kind of market system that we're in now? How does that match up?
Most people don't take and look at the two main systems that human beings have. And the two systems that humans have are the marketplace, where all voluntary human interaction takes place, and government. And if you look at the marketplace, you'll see that it's a competitive system. You'll see that competition eliminates waste, and you'll see that everything in the marketplace moves to ease. For example, you will never see that guy on TV hold up his product and say, buy my product, it will really make your life difficult. They always hold up their product and say, my product's going to make your life easy. The whole entire marketplace is based on a move to ease. Now, the other system that we have is government. And government, humans invented. It didn't happen naturally. I would say the marketplace happened naturally, but government was invented. And what you realize is there's only one government. You know, there's a government of America, there's a government of Canada, but it's only singular. How do you have competition with a singular system? You can't. So government is a non-competitive system. And that makes all the difference. Because government is a non-competitive system, it cannot eliminate waste. So it can only create waste. And waste accumulates, it never goes away. And those simple fundamentals, you can think about them, they're self-evident. And when you do think about them, you say, of course, that's how it has to be. If you want prosperity, it has to come from a competitive system where waste is eliminated. If you want poverty, look at a non-competitive system where waste accumulates. And once we get the population to understand that simple thing, a lot of things will get better.
Agreed. How do you then introduce the competitive system in the system that we currently have now?
I'm sorry, I'm not exactly sure. I mean, our marketplace is very competitive.
Well, I know I'm talking about in government. Right now, it's non-competitive, so there's tons of waste. How do we fix that?
You can't. This is my point. It's the nature of the system. So I like to say, you know, government is a cat and the marketplace is a dog. They're both animals. They both look alike. They both eat like animals. But you can't make a cat bark and you can't make a dog meow. They're different. They act differently. And I've had a lot of people say, how do you get rid of waste in government? Well, the fact of the matter is you can't, unless you have two governments. But what's the point of having two governments? You know, I think American federalism is the closest we've gotten to that. In fact, I make the argument in my book that all the states should be in charge of all the welfare, because then the states will compete one after the other. And what you will find, because we're humans, because we move to ease, is the state that offers the highest benefits to welfare recipients will get the most welfare recipients. And as the people of that state realize they're spending all this money on all these people that are inundating their state, they will reduce the amount they give to these people, and they'll go to the next best. And eventually, after a period of 10 or 15 years, it'll pretty much flatten out where all the welfare will be the same. But if you have the welfare in the federal government, you don't have any competition at all. And so it can never improve. Real simply, real quick, Lyndon Johnson actually thought with his Great Society that by giving money to the poor people, he could end poverty once and for all, which only shows Lyndon Johnson didn't understand how the world worked. And government never can, it's singular. It can never eliminate waste unless you have two of them. So federalism is a good idea.
See, that you're talking about something that we ran into when we wanted to start private Christian schools here in Alberta. Bottom line, if you only have one system in the schools that's led by the government, there's no competition. So
Exactly.
they get all the money for education, and they then start doing it all on their own. If you have competition, which means now you have a private school, and the private school has its own beliefs and scenarios of what it wants to make sure children, get in their education, as well as reading, writing, and arithmetic, then you start having competition. I remember when we started to start private schools here in Alberta, it didn't exist before. And so they said, if you let private schools happen, it will destroy the public school. And I said, no, it will help the public school. It will enhance the public school. In other words, there's a reason why the parents are going to pull their kids out of the public school. If you eliminate that reason, then you can keep the kids. But if you can't eliminate that reason, then you're going to lose the kids. Okay. Now, the interesting thing, the way the government went is the money didn't follow the student. So you even had the extra burden of financing in the private sector. But it still worked because people were willing to sacrifice some things in their life over the education of their kids. Their kids meant more to them than another vacation or another trip or another cruise or whatever. And the interesting thing is that what I saw over the years, we started school back in the 1979. And what I've seen over the years is now the public school has been spending all their time trying to make the private school exactly like the public school.
Yeah.
And therefore destroy the competition.
Yeah.
The problem is
Good
a
point.
lot of private schools fell into that trap. And they went after the money that the public system could give them. And they then accepted the things that the public school said you have to do now that you have the money. It's the golden rule. He who has the gold rules. And that's exactly what happened.
I might add, everything moves to ease, right? I get free money. It's easier than trying to go out and raise it, right?
Right.
It's a natural tendency of human beings. But I just want to mention in the United States, I mentioned earlier, when I was hiring people who were graduates of the high schools of Detroit, they couldn't read or write. And I think that's a basic fundamental. You can't pass someone if they can't read and write. But our metric in the United States today isn't if someone can read or write. It's whether or not they graduate. And you know what? We have almost perfect graduation rates of people who can't read or write. So we got the metric all entirely backwards. And again, it's government. And again, who talking about a school would say we should have a metric just based on who can graduate and just push them along? Well, nobody who is interested in schools. And I think a lot of people forget the reason for a school. We're all born dependent. The point of school is to prepare us to be independent, where we go into the marketplace and we have to compete. It's a big transition in everybody's life, leaving home and going out on your own. The point of education is to help you make that transition. That's all it's for. And we have to get back to understanding that and forget the metrics of how many people graduated. It's ridiculous.
Well, I love your point about don't feed the bears, because you're absolutely right. If you go and feed the bears, if campers started feeding the bears then would stop going and finding prey in the forest and relying on the campers to feed them. And we're seeing that happen in our system now with the welfare. I mean, I'm on TikTok and I watched this family. They're on welfare. They went to Target and spent $1,000 in groceries and junk. And then they went to Sam's Club and spent $1,000. And then they went to another grocery store and spent $1,000. $3,000 a month they're out spending and buying, yes, some essentials, but rest of it was just toys and clothes and all this stuff. And let
me ask you a quick question.
Yeah.
Are people fighting to get off welfare, or are people fighting to stay on welfare?
Sure.
They're fighting to stay on welfare because it's easier. You mean I get free money, I don't have to work, I can buy drugs, I can do whatever I want to do, and I don't have to work?
Yeah.
Give it to me, man.
Well,
and this is why in America, our welfare rules have exploded. And because, again, there's no competition. I mentioned earlier, the states should have all the welfare. And then you have 50 competing laboratories, if you will, to see which welfare system works the best. The federal government has no clue what these people are doing or how they're gaming the system or how they're cheating it. In fact, I've been to some places where people brag about how they're scamming the system because it's fun. They're laughing. And when that check or EBT card comes, man, it's lobster, it's steak, it's filet mignon. It's easy.
Well, and I was just going to say that when Doge came in and they were starting to talk about how they're going to cut back on a lot of that welfare, spending, these people were angry on TikTok and yelling at everybody and demanding their money, that it's our responsibility. It's your responsibility, Donald, to make sure that they get their $3,000 a month, or you are a horrible person. And I'm like, this is the bears. This is the bears. If the campers stop feeding the bears will get angry at the campers because the campers caused the problem. The bears now expect that food to be there. And when it's not, they're angry and they don't know how to go back into nature and find the prey. You're absolutely correct.
Yeah, one of the points in the book is that in a system of freedom, you are a success when you can take care of yourself. I'm sure, gentlemen, you take care of yourself. I take care of myself. My family members take care of themselves. It's the transition from being a child to being an adult. And what we're doing by opening up huge welfare programs and this and that is we're keeping people dependent, which means we're keeping them children. Adults take care of themselves. Children don't take care of themselves. And that's a real simple concept everybody should understand. And it's a shame because we're losing a lot of talent and a lot of thought because if you don't make people work, if you don't make people think how they're going to prosper, then they don't. And we might lose ideas of this or that or the other thing. This is how the American prosperity was built. Everybody was working, everybody was trying, everybody was thinking. I go back right to the founding, 1800, I think there were 6,000 patents. By 1900, I think there were over 100,000 patents. That just shows the amount of thinking that people were doing because they were allowed to do it. And yes, if they had a good patent, maybe a good idea, they could really get ahead. Unfortunately, the reality, of course, is most of the patents were junk And probably 95% of everybody who's ever patented anything didn't really make any money on it. I've patented several things and I've never made any money on it. But the point is, it allows you to think. And we want adults in our society. We don't want children, especially 40-year-old children.
Mm. Well, I see that. Go ahead, Dad.
No, go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying, I agree. You could see back in the old, Benjamin Franklin days or Tesla's days, Nikola Tesla. These guys were creating some amazing inventions and stuff and bringing in crazy stuff, flying cars and cars that would float on the river. They would drive and they'd also be a boat. But then government came in and put in all these regulations. We're seeing it in everything, all these regulations to where it just killed people from being, inventors or having an imagination because of all the restrictions and the rules and the regulations and the trade barriers, between. They've caused a massive problem to where people can't, they're not even, we're being groomed to just be reliant on the handout, basically, of the government. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. We're being told that the government can take care of us. We're being told the government can create prosperity, which is just untrue. The system will not allow it. It's like a car is a system. It's a mechanical system. You can use your car for many, many things, but it will not knit a sweater for you. A car will not knit a sweater. Okay, we don't want to have a car to knit a sweater. It's just ridiculous. So government to create prosperity is basically the same thing. I'd like to go back to the founding of America and a quick comparison to Europe. In Europe, you had an upper class and you had the poor people. And for the poor people to do anything, they had to have permission from the upper class. Well, in America, it was different. And Franklin had what he called the junto, which is a group of 12. Well, he originally called it the Leather Apron Club, just workers. He was a printer and glaziers and carpenters and this and that. And they sat every Friday and said, how do we make the world better? How do we improve this? How do we improve that? And that was the root and the seed for the public library and the fire patrols and the fire insurance and all sorts of things like that. Just common people were thinking of good answers. And when America started finally, we had the perfect system and we didn't know it. We had English common law, so there was not anarchy, and we had very limited government, so there was not tyranny. And the result was we allowed the marketplace to work. And from 1800 to I would say 1860, 60 years, 70 years, we became the most prosperous nation in the world, and nobody knew why. Nobody knew why. They didn't understand how prosperity is created. But you need a marketplace. It needs to work. It needs to eliminate waste. You have to encourage innovation. And then you have prosperity. You can do it anywhere in the world.
Wow. You need competition in the health industry. Canada's bragged that it's always had this good health program. But to be honest with you, our health industry, our hospitals and everything else are crumbling. And I know some people may disagree with that, but it boils down to it's a socialized system, and a socialized system, when private organizations can do jobs better than the government. And whenever you have a society that government is trying to rule, you got a problem.
I'm going to blow your minds now. And I'm glad you brought up socialism. Real quick, I mentioned I live in Detroit, and we get Canadians all the time in our hospitals. They come across the border because they can't get treated in Canada. But we have made a mistake for hundreds of years, or 100 years, since Marx wrote his Das Kapital. We have assumed that socialism is an economic system. Socialism is not an economic system. It's a government system. It's the government running the marketplace. And because it's a government system, there's no competition. And because there's no competition, there cannot be prosperity. And, this is why socialism always creates poverty, and people can't understand why. It started out so good, and now everybody is poor. Well, next time you see someone who's a big fan of socialism, ask them this simple question. How do you eliminate waste in socialism? Usually they give me a blank stare. They don't know. I don't know how you eliminate waste. Well, there's your answer. It won't work.
Wow. Well, Donald, we really appreciate you. We're out of time. Your book is called Freedom Revealed, A Simple, Elegant System. I'm guessing you can get it on Amazon. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right.
And I've got YouTube videos and Substack. So if you want to take a look at that, you can do that too.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being on the show. We really appreciate you. We're going to have you back because I think you really nailed something interesting, and we're on the same page. So thanks for being here. We'll have you back. Well, waste, Alan, waste. How much waste do we have in government?
Well, that's an eternity type of question.
Well, especially in health.
Yeah.
Well, especially in healthcare. I mean, we pay the most money of anything goes into healthcare, and check out our healthcare system. I mean, you could go to see a doctor in a walk-in clinic and have to sit there and wait hours, 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours to see someone. And we spend a huge amount of money into healthcare. It's disgusting.
It's interesting that your guest is saying that people, in the Detroit, Windsor area just drive across the bridge. In Alberta, we have to fly somewhere, but people do. We had a neighbor lady who needed a hip surgery, and she couldn't get one for months, and she flew to Colorado and got it done. And it was fantastic, right? So
sad.
Yeah.
Sad.
But you know what? There is hope, because there are some private clinics even being built now here in Calgary. So,
well, I'm sure they're going to do amazing.
For knee replacement, hip replacement, stuff like that.
Competition. This is exactly what Donald's talking about. You throw in some competition, it helps balance the waste. Yeah. Interesting stuff. You want to help us with our mission, keep this kind of conversation and truth on the air? We are viewer supported. We don't take government funds or lobbyists or special interest groups. It's just because of the generosity of our viewers that we can continue to be on the air. You can go to our website, gotalktruth.com, click on donate. There are many different ways you can give digitally that way. If you'd like to do it through the mail, you can. You can make your gift payable to Heritage Christian Ministries Association and send it to 246 Stewart Green Southwest, Suite 3260, Calgary, Alberta, T3H 3C8. All your gifts are tax deductible. If you like prayer, we have a toll-free number, 1-800-915-0056, and our prayer team is waiting for your call to pray with you. All right, Dad, we're out of time. We'll see you guys later.
Love you.